me. And you can see my email address here is markanabaptist@gmail.com. This message is, in fairness to Iran. Lately there's been a lot of tensions entirely created by the Rothschild International banksters who profit from unjust wars. And the thing I find notorious is the way they don't put things in context, that Iran hasn't attacked anyone in like hundreds of years, and they don't point out that this, if Iran is a monster, I'm not saying they are, if they were, they're a monster of our own making. In 1953, criminal elements of the CIA, which was founded by the Skull and Bones Society at Yale University, along with a lot of prominent former Nazi intelligence officers, they ousted the popularly elected pro-Western Mossadegh because basically he intended to actually use the oil revenue to better the conditions of his people. They ousted this popularly elected pro-Western leader and installed the Shah. And I find people taking things completely out of moral context. When, oh, they held our hostages for 444 days. Yes, they held 50 hostages for 444 days. Because they were the only leverage that the Iranians had to demand that the Shah be returned to them to face justice. The thing is that when this is conveniently left out, you don't understand that there's cause. You can't understand consequence without understanding cause. And also, the CIA wasn't finished with this. And 10 years after installing the Shah in Iran, they installed a character named Saddam Hussein. As in, the enemy of my enemy is only my friend for as long as it's mutually convenient. Saddam Hussein was used, Iraq became our client state for 8 years of war between Iraq and Iran, and we were supplying weapons and munitions to both sides, making a boatload of money and sowing death and destruction on both sides. So let's be clear, this is one of the legitimate grievances that Iran has regarding how wars, all wars are bankers' wars. I'm not blaming your typical branch manager or anybody. I'm talking about the people way up at the top. What needs to be clearly understood is if you don't put things in moral context of understanding causality, consequences don't happen on their own. So the thing is that nowadays there's this accusation that Iran has some secret nuclear weapons program. And when I hear neocons, they make it sound like this bad Iran deal. Well, there is a problem with the Iran deal, in that there is a real rogue nuclear power that when JFK insisted on inspecting the Dimona plant, it wasn't too long after that he wound up being dead. JFK was completely against Israel having nuclear weapons. And so when they accuse Iran of they accuse, without ever having any real proof, that Iran has some alleged nuclear weapons program, conspicuous silence is that Israel refuses to even discuss signing the NPT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They won't even discuss it. And they have hundreds of state-of-the-art nuclear weapons and delivery systems, and it is illegal under American law for a nation to receive our foreign aid, which across the board is unconstitutional, without being a signatory to the NPT. And the thing is, they maintain they call it ambiguity. There's a better word for it, duplicity. And they say, oh, that's okay because Israel's our friend. Really? Care to explain that to the survivors of the USS Liberty? The thing is, differing weights and differing standards are detestable in the sight of God, according to Proverbs 20, verse 10. All I'm saying is let's be even-handed, and yeah, there is a problem with a rogue nuclear power. And if you're not disciplined, then you're a bastard, according to Hebrews 12, verse 8. And all I'm saying is Israel needs to be disciplined, or it's a bastard. And I believe, yes, it is a bastard, because there cannot I agree with those Jews who maintain that there cannot exist a legitimate state of Israel until what they call the coming, we would call the return of the Messiah. I'm not hostile to them. To the best of my knowledge, they're not hostile to me. I don't blame this generation of Jews for what happened almost 2,000 years ago. But what needs to be clear, when I hear these people say this bad Iran deal, I'm like, wait a minute. This is not something that Obama did completely on his own. Britain, France, Russia, China, and Germany, who's borne the weight of a lot of reparations to people who, quite frankly, you know, this generation of Israelis did not suffer the Holocaust, and this generation of Germans doesn't owe them. But the reparations continue because it's all about the international bankers. Oh boy. What I'm saying is, let's be fair and understand something. The Persian people have legitimate grievances about the unjust sanctions. They have legitimate grievances about the duplicity where we don't hold Israel accountable. And all I'm saying is, let's stop and think and question. Let's take an honest look at what's really going on here. And let's get over the idea that accusation should be blindly taken as proof. Because when accusation is taken as proof, it only proves people are gullible. You know who it was that said it's well for rulers that men do not think? Yep, that was Adolf Hitler. And our current form of government operates under that premise. Well, it's good for us that you people aren't really thinking about how we've basically not been honest with you, the people of America or people of the world at all, for a long time. Let's be fair to everyone. Let's acknowledge that the people of Persia, or call it Iran if you want, the thing is, Britain had no legitimacy to promise the Holy Land to anybody. It wasn't theirs. And it was only when America got dragged into their war that they wound up taking over this territory in a manner that is like, wait a minute, you made promises to give this land to certain people when this wasn't your land to give. And quite frankly, there's a lot of things that really people need to stop and think. Get Socratic means ask probing questions. Let's get down to the reality that the system does not want to deal with. Injustice is not a blessing. Impunity is not a blessing. Duplicity is not a blessing. So anyway, have a blessed day. You got my email address, markanabaptist@gmail.com. If you have any questions, by my way, my PayPal account is also linked to that email address.